For FACE Foundation, it is a series that they are doing, Hyderabad, the city of many stories. Today's story is to introduce to people who don't know, to people who are new to the region, to people who want to know more about how is it that these three cities, Golconda, Hyderabad and Secunderabad, impacted each other. The region already had small settlements. It was agricultural villages, it was small villages, small huts. When the Qutub Shahis, because we are starting today with Golconda, the major development of Golconda fort happened due to the Qutub Shahis, who took over the fort, which was mud at the time, and outpost fort of the Kakatiyas, very much like the Warangal Kakatiya fort mud also. The Qutub Shahis are the rulers that were the 5 Dakhni Sultanates. They took over first as governor of Telangana, because after the Bahmanis conquered the Kakatiya kingdoms, they then appointed a governor here in Golconda, who was the first Qutub Shahi ruler. The story of how this fort developed stone cladding, embankments, lakes, agriculture, because this was a city fort. It was not just a fort or military fort. It was a city fort that had people living within. There was agriculture within. There were a series of developments in the area. Golconda also is important for the trade and commerce factor that they marketed between Surat and Machilipatnam, with Golconda as a trade center. Today, the diamonds of Golconda are famous because of the Qutub Shahis. The Europeans learnt about the quality and the shine of the Golconda diamond. French travelers came here, jewelers, and also that the pearl trade happened through Hyderabad, through Golconda, is less known because people always ask, where is the sea? What is the proximity to the sea? It is because of this trade route that the pearls came from Basra, from the Middle East, and the local rulers developed a great fondness for this jewel, and also the drilling of the small pearls happened only here in Hyderabad, in Golconda, in the kingdom. The Qutub Shahis realized through time that the city fort had outgrown its agriculture, its water, and its other possibilities because the population was growing. This kind of thinking, advanced planning has not happened in the recent years. The Qutub Shahis gave us Hyderabad. Of course, there is a romantic legend about the prince and the Bhagwati. This is not documented. There is no evidence anywhere. And so we would like to document the first step, the first built heritage from Golconda to Hyderabad as Purana Pool, which is the first stone structure that was constructed across the river Musi. One must keep in mind that we did not have perennial rivers in this part of the Deccan. We of course have the Godavari and the Krishna in other regions, but in Hyderabad we did not have perennial water systems. We had the Musi and its sister river, the Isi, that flowed only when the monsoons, when the rains came here. Originating in the Anantagiri hills, very beautiful. This development, this footstep towards Hyderabad, we see first the Puranapur bridge. The next structure we see is Charminar. We then see Darul Shifa. We see Badshahi Ashur Khana. We see the 4 darwazas, the 4 gates, the commands, which were actually the center of the city. Gulzar House, which is there today, which is actually called Suka House, which was Su in Persian meaning water, 4 waters, and this was the center of the city. The city then started to grow with the advent of the Europeans coming into this area. The city started to grow across the Musi, northward, and we have today the British residency, that is the Women's College Koti. And when the British came into this region, due to military alliances with the Nizams of that period, the threat being the Marathas, they needed military support. They had irregular armies that were called at time of need, but they were not so well organized. The first regular armies came together in Hyderabad under the stewardship of Monsieur Rimbaud, who was a Frenchman who came to us via Pondicherry. and he, along with Nizam II, Nizam Ali Khan, organized the armies of Hyderabad. They also set up various cannon manufacturing foundries. And we have today the last remaining, which is called gun foundry, not a bus stop, but the gun foundry which manufactured fantastic quality cannon, which are available today in the State Museum, also in something called the Gun Park. So with the advent of the French, the British felt that they also wanted to be in this rich region and wanted to then take control. So there was a controversy, there was a conspiracy, and Monsieur Raymond was found dead, quite healthy the night before, dead in the morning. The French, of course, felt that he had been poisoned. The British then negotiated new agreements with the Nizam, which meant disbanding the armies organized by the French and sitting there themselves up. This led to the formation of Secunderabad, because they then had something called the subsidiary alliance, the Nizam and the British, by which all of the land from Hussain Sagar onwards up to the present day cantonment area, including Begumpet, including Secunderabad, Walker town that this was in the old days, this was part of the cantonment. The Secunderabad development also led to the rise of better transport in the region. We did not have a railway system. But in 1874, in the 1870s, what was called the Nizam Guaranteed State Railway was organized for us due to the foresight and planning of Salatin I, who was Prime Minister, Diwan of Hyderabad State at that time. Mahbub Ali Khan Nizam VI was a young person, just having taken over. But Salatin I realized that the railways are a very good thing for us. Then we had the Godavari Valley Light Railway, which went from Kachigura to Aurangabad to Manmad. The reason being that we could export directly from Manmad to Bombay via the GIPR, that is the Great Indian Peninsula Railway, giving us an export outlet and an import outlet, bringing from Bombay and from the European countries into Hyderabad state by rail. This also led to very rich development in the area. The NGSR, later called the NSR, the Nizam State Railway, in 1930 was bought over completely, the shares, by Nizam VII Usman Ali Khan, and the railways became ours. This also led to another development in transport. I think Hyderabad is possibly the only one in the world which had a coordinated transport system where the railways managed both road, rail, and later development in the 1930s, the air. So in this area we also have the aviation history of Begumpet Airport, the airfield, Hyderabad State Aero Club. We also had the first aeroplane coming to land in Secunderabad Parade Maidan in 1910. This was the support and the interest of the Nizams in modern development. Hyderabad city that we see today is the result of this forward thinking, accepting new concepts, and the Prime Minister of the period, Salajan I, II, and III, that brought modern development into the area. Secunderabad today is enriched by our aviation areas, by the railways, because it is this forethought that has brought the whole of the railway system into providing networks in India. The buses also were fantastic. The initial Albion buses were imported from England in package condition. The later ones, the double-deckers that people are now thinking about and dreaming about, they came in knockdown condition, also Albion from UK, completely assembled and reassembled here in Hyderabad by the Alvin Metal Working Company in what is today called the Bus Bhavan area. That was the depots that they had for the NGSR, and these buses were assembled here. As a child, it was a wonderful experience to be taking a ride on a double-decker bus, because it gave you a completely new perspective of looking at the city from above. And I must say, looking at that city from above, we looked at lakes, we looked at wonderful buildings, we looked at railway stations, we looked at so many things as we travelled. And today, if we have a double-decker bus again, I fear that I will be looking at concrete if I ever get into a double-decker bus. And we will be looking at only metro pillars and more concrete, and all the wonderful structures that existed on these routes today mostly don't exist. They have been demolished in the name of, I like to use the word development, because it is spelled like this today. Today's politician calls the word development, which means destruction. You spell it DOWLUPMUNT, which means development. The wonderful cities that grew out of the Shahi presence here gave us Hussain Sagar before the city came, Ibrahim Patnam Cheru, Ma Sahiba tank in the middle of the city. There are two Ma Sahiba tanks. The Ma Sahiba tank that many people think are a bus stop actually was a wonderful lake provided by one of the Golconda ladies, one of the wives of the sultans, who built this Ma Sahib tank. Ma Sahiba is the word. Who built that tank to provide water for agriculture in the region. All of these lakes provided also flood and drought control systems. In the monsoons, they prevented flooding in the cities. In the drought period, they trapped water for us so that we could have water for this population that existed at that time. Today, if we read about Secunderabad, the lakes, Hyderabad, the lakes, and we look at our situation today, we worry because these lakes that were brought to protect us, to give us water, have themselves become endangered and are now endangering the lakes, the lives of citizens of the region because they have been disturbed and mismanaged. It is this lack of planning in these centuries, in these decades, especially from the 1970s, I find that there has been huge destruction in our area, leading to this condition of living for populations existing here too. Any city that is developed must develop with the mind. It must have planning. It must have forethought. It must think for the city, for the citizen, what is good for us. It should not just be something to show that I have done this and this is an achievement and therefore I should continue. The tragedy of the cities that I knew, because I know my cities very well. As a small girl, I went about on bicycle all over Hyderabad, Secunderabad and Golconda also. When you are on the street, when you are attached to the ground, you learn, you accept, you own and you protect. And this is something that is lacking today. We have populations that are feeling at a loss. They are here but they don't know what to do. They are not in control of their situation. Only when a problem arises, then they start looking for solutions. Solutions like this cannot happen overnight. Solutions must happen through thinking, through planning and through learning and knowing history, knowing from where this has come and how we have come to today. Tri-City, Golconda, Hyderabad and Secunderabad comes from experiencing travels with my parents, visits to my grandparents, travels with school, excursions with college, because my schooling happened at St. Anne's, Madhupalli, which itself is an ancient, wonderful structure. It started as residence, as buildings for the Irish regiments that were posted here as part of the Secunderabad cantonment. It then was taken over and became St. Anne's Convent, Madhupalli. My mother also was a student there. And these kind of experiences exposed us to other languages, to other cultures. Madhupalli was a development from the 1930s onwards. Jira was a wonderful experience also because then we started to get Art Nouveau and Art Deco structures in the region. Some of these are still there today. Golconda itself is a combination of Persian Bhavani architecture that came to us through Bidar, through the Gulbarga regions. And today it's a wonderful experience to go there because it is open space, it is light, it is happiness, because under the present circumstances of COVID and all of these things, to go to a heritage site, to go and visit an open area is a wonderful experience because there is safety in these places. There is history in these places. And it allows us to come out of apartment buildings, concrete structures, enclosed spaces which are not safe anymore. We look at young children today and we remember the days of our growing up, where an outing meant going to Usman Sagar or to Humayun Sagar. Today's children are locked up in their classrooms. They are locked up in their homes. There are not enough open spaces for children to play because an apartment building that comes up is not providing open spaces and play spaces for children. It has become space means money, money in the pocket, but lack of quality of life for young people. For old people also it's a different story because we have wonderful parks here in Hyderabad. And now when multi-families are living together in enclosed spaces, there are also psychological imbalances that are coming out of this, which requires people to be able to go out and share with their friends, their contemporaries, and to be able to balance their own lives through this sharing. So for me, it's a very happy growing up. The population was less, the dangers were less, and the wonderful structures that I grew up with today, of course, are somewhat disturbed, but there are enough left in this fabric for us to be able to go and explore, experiment, and learn to love it. So this is a message for tomorrow, that people of today that are living in this area must learn, must adopt, must protect for their own benefit. It's not for us anymore because we have enjoyed the better. But tomorrow is for young people of tomorrow, and if they need to improve their lifestyles and to protect their own health, they also need to protect yesterday for their tomorrows. As I mentioned earlier, Golconda has a rich history of the Irani, the Persian, the Baimani, and so we have Golconda Fort. Unfortunately, some of those are disturbed, but we still have the rich heritage of the battlements of the whole military history of that region. And it's interesting that a fort that was built for military purposes is being used today by the Indian Army for the very same purpose. And in several visits, we have found that they have retained this aura that they inherited. We then come to Hyderabad city, and we have a plethora, we have wonderful monuments here. We have mostly built by the Asjahis. The later, the more recognizable today during the period of Nizam, the 7th Usman Ali Khan. We have the High Court, we have the Salajan, with the High Court we have the Usmania General Hospital, we have the Asafia Library, which is the state library, all alongside the mosque. We have, starting with the Puranapur Bridge, we have the next bridge which is the Musalam Jan Bridge. We then have Nayapur, and finally we have Chadarkar Bridge. I have visited cities like Isfahan in Persia, where they have made a wonderful feature of the bridges that they have. And today we have that rich heritage here. So it should be recognized and promoted in the proper manner. We then have the assembly building which was built for the town hall for the birthday of Mehboob Ali Khan for his birthday, and which is now serving as part of the assembly in Telangana state. Where is it that we do not have such a rich heritage? Hussain Sagar itself is a Qutub Shahi monument because it is built for us during that period, and it is a monument because it stands still strong and serving the community. Though polluted, but it's still there. All over the city we have wonderful lakes. In Fox Sagar, coming to Secunderabad today, we have Saidani Tomb, which is as soon as you cross the tank bar towards Secunderabad. It's a wonderful monument to a mother, to a woman, built by Dilip Jung, who was a minister in charge of the railway development of Hyderabad state. So he is also buried next to his mother, but his mother's tomb is beautiful. It's a work of art. It is something that one should recognize, and his recognition of the fact that it is a woman and that it is more beautiful than his own tomb shows the value and respect he had. Secunderabad station today, built for us by the Nizams in 1874 already. The development from Wadi to Secunderabad, finally to Vijayawada station. It's interesting to know that before Vijayawada station, there is a station called Nizam Gate. That was the last station of the NGSR, where the railways would then hand over to the British administration. We have in Hyderabad Kachigura railway station and Nampally railway station, both with very beautiful structures. Luckily, Kachigura still is in the same original form. Nampally station was called Hyderabad BG, Hyderabad Broad Gauge, was very beautiful. But this word development is what has made it to. If we look at old photographs of that station, we have lost something very beautiful. But the city is full of beautiful dargahs, of mosques, of institutional buildings Coming to the 30s, we have Arts College, Osmania University, that is a work of art in granite. A little story there, when the first design came, the Nizam Osman Ali Khan VII sent his engineer and his architect Zainia Jam all over the world to get back the best of architecture for us to build Arts College. They came back. On the way they found Jasper, who was a Belgian architect and who was working on a new city in Egypt called Heliopolis. Because Cairo was the ancient city, they also wanted to develop something called Heliopolis, which is a new city. And there they found Jasper working with this shared architectural heritage of Iran, of Egypt, of Europe. So they brought Jasper back with them. The original design that Jasper gave them was beautiful, but when it was shown to Osman Ali Khan, Nizam VI, I believe his only question was, but where is Hyderabad? So initially they were puzzled, they didn't understand what it was, and he said, I do not see any of our architecture of the Deccan in this building. So then they redesigned, and what we see in Arts College today, the ground floor is actually elements from Ajanta Ellora, because we then see Jaina Buddhist elements in this in the ground floor. On the first floor, which is the next floor of the Arts College, we see Persian elements. So we see a whole connection, a whole coming together of architecture from various parts of the country and parts of the world. And it's interesting to note that in the institutional buildings of Hyderabad state, everywhere the pillar, the arch of Ajanta Ellora has been used. So here it shows that we are beyond Islamic culture. We are beyond Islam as a ruler. We are looking at architecture as part of our culture. We are looking at costume as part of our culture. We are looking at language as part of our culture. Because for those of us who have been fortunate to grow up in Hyderabad state, we have been gifted with many languages. We have English, which was the official working language, but we have Marathi, Kannada, Telugu, which gives us the base to be able to understand and share with any other part of the country, where perhaps they speak one language and are forced perhaps now to speak English. But for us, it is part of this culture that we grew up with, because these are the people that formed Hyderabad state. So I must say that in closing, I am very lucky to have grown up in Hyderabad state, because there is a sense of belonging. If I travel outside present-day Telangana into Marathwada area, which is up to Aurangabad, or if I travel in Raichur area or anywhere else, it is part of my heritage history, and every area has monuments. Tungabhadra Dam, for example, paid for by Hyderabad state and Madras state. So it's a shared heritage, and for us, when we travel to Bangalore or any of those regions, it may travel through these areas. And so it's a wonderful gift to be able to say, that's mine. It's a word I commonly use often nowadays, because I feel the funding has come from us, the sharing has come from us, and if we gift it to another generation, they should learn to value it, they should learn to treasure it, and they must protect it.